Hi, welcome back. And I'm so excited to introduce you to our next guest, Jana Jae. I met her, probably a couple of years ago. She probably doesn't even remember who I was or where we were, but we did shortly. And she's got a background that you'll find quite interesting. So let me introduce you to Jana Jae.
Thank you.
Thank you. Would you like to have a seat? Okay, Jana, I don't know if I mentioned that. Do you remember meeting me probably a couple of years ago at a trade show?
Where were we?
Somewhere here in Tulsa. I don't remember exactly where it was, but you walked up and introduced yourself. I think you were playing there as well. Could have been anywhere, right?
Played a lot of places around here also.
You've got such an interesting background. I saw on your website that you've played with, didn't you say Buck Owens gave you your start?
Hee Haw, yeah. Most of the younger generation doesn't even know what hee haw is.
Uh-huh.
But, I was on hee haw about the last 5 years of filming. But that show was incredible. It was on for 26 years.
Wow.
And I was a member of Buck Owens' band. So you're very close
So you were a member of Buck Owens' band that played on hee haw. Is that what you're saying? Mm-hmm. Okay. So how'd that all start? I mean, how'd you...
Gosh.
Had you just been playing around everywhere and they just happened to see you one day, or?
I think I met Buck in Redding, California when he appeared there. And there were 2 shows at the college, and I was introduced by one of the fellows who was running the show at the college, and they invited me to play on the next show. So that's how I met Buck, and he hired me later, and that took me to hee haw and kind of an international touring base, and I've been doing that ever since. That was a while back. I mean, so based in Tulsa now because it's so nice and central, and we travel out of Tulsa and still do lots of traveling.
Now, I think I read on your website, didn't your parents go to...
Juilliard.
Wow.
Yeah, they're both Juilliard trained. My mama's daddy was an old-time fiddle player, champion fiddler, and grandmother played the piano, and they wanted her to learn right. So they sent her to New York City to Juilliard, and she met my father there. And both violinists, they put a little violin in my hand when I was 2 years old.
Oh, wow.
And I've been playing ever since.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. Now, I had asked you about your blue fiddle.
Right.
Because I know I saw it on the website, and you're known for playing the blue fiddle, right? But you said there's something very interesting about this fiddle here?
Yes. The blue violin was handed to me on hee haw, and I thought, gosh, I was kind of a purist, you know.
Can I stop you for a second?
Sure.
I said fiddle, and then you said violin. Okay.
What's the difference?
Help me here.
What is the difference between a fiddle and a violin? I bet some of your viewers will guess all sorts of things. Do you know the difference?
No.
Most people don't really, but there is no difference. It's just the same instrument, it's just how you play it.
Now, what do you mean by that?
Well, we'll show you when we play over there in a little bit.
I'll wait.
Yeah.
I'll wait.
But we can do classical Bach or whatever on this, or a little bit of hoedown type thing, bluegrass, whatever.
Now, you said that the blue fiddle, so why do you switch, I mean, why do you play the blue?
Well, the blue violin is electric, and I didn't know anything about, how we would be. You have all sorts of facilities here that I didn't realize. So I didn't bring my electric violin, because this one I just play, wherever. It has a nice loud sound. This was made in 1750 in Milan, Italy. And that's the same time period, Stradivarius. All those really great violins were made. And same area. Cremona is just about 60 miles from Milan. So this is a really fine violin that I cherish and protect and love playing. It's a Finoli, and it's really, I do all sorts of music with it, chamber music and all. But if I need to be heard in a band, then I plug in and play my blue fiddle, because that became sort of a trademark on hee haw. It was the best thing I ever did, really. But I objected at first, because I was a purist, didn't think that that blue violin, I thought, what on earth? But it worked.
Oh, wow. Obviously it did, because you've been everywhere. So tell us some of the experiences that you've had, and how does God play a part in how you've been you know, taking your music all over the world, really. So where does God fit into this?
Well, I think faith is the very core of my being, my faith. And probably the earliest experience I remember was age 5, going to be on the Ted Mack Amateur Hour, which was television. And I became very nervous. I was playing Hungarian dance number 5, which is kind of a difficult number. And my mom said, "Now, Jana, you know God is right here with you every moment." And I think that simple thought of just the presence of God surrounding me was really, I just was totally relaxed. And,
now, how
you know,
old were you at that time?
5.
5?
And
oh,
we
wow.
sailed through the performance, the televised performance. And, but that was a good, that was kind of a foundation, and that's where we always started. And, you know, music is thought of as the international language, universal language, and crosses all boundaries. But I think it's more than that, really. I think of it as God's language. And, you know, there is something very divine, really, when you're just playing and releasing and listening for guidance and, you know, improvising or whatever the case may be. But it's, you sort of release your own self and let a higher power take control, which is, of course, we know what always is. You know, God is always in control.
Right.
But when we get ourselves out of the way, then I think that divine language comes through. And it's music is very, very special in that regard. I think even in the peace process, you know, there's a marvelous orchestra in, I think they're based in Israel. It's Daniel Barenboim, who is the conductor. But they have Israeli and Arabic participants, and they play music together. And what a bridge for peace.
Right.
So I think it's always been, you know, I felt very, very special to be able to be a musician and earn my living as a musician.
Really?
And so there have been other incidents too, you know, that have just been outstanding.
Well, tell me some of those things. I mean, that really stand out that maybe people didn't know that had come into your life?
Well, another time that I really remember clearly was another time I was beginning to be very nervous. You know, a lot of people struggle with stage fright or whatever. And I was 12 and going to play at a Lions Club luncheon, and we had the date on the calendar. And every time I would see that date, I mean, this was like 6 weeks off. Every time I'd see that date, I just got clutchy in my stomach, butterflies and everything. And I finally talked to Mom again about it. I said, I'm just really nervous. They expect me to be really good, and and I don't know if I can do this. I was playing the Sights Pupils Concerto, and it was very difficult. And she said, "Do you love your violin?" And I said, "Yes, I do, of course." And she said, "Well, God, you are God's instrument, and God loves you." And so that just erased all the fear. And I thought, well, so I've thought of that. You know, you get yourself out of the way. You're just an instrument for God's Word. And so that was so helpful. And these early experiences, anyway, I usually don't have trouble with stage fright.
You seem very calm.
Well, this is a different experience. We'll see what happens. I don't have my normal musicians. Joseph and I put something together for you just spontaneously.
We're anxious to hear that.
So this will be kind of fun.
We're getting ready to take a break right now. When we come back, we'll find out how you and Joseph work well together. But I appreciate it, Jana. Hold on for just a minute. We'll take a quick break, and when we get back, let's see what Jana Jae and Joseph can do together. I know you're going to enjoy it. Welcome back. And we have with us here Jana Jae, and she sang, or she played her fiddle or violin, whichever way you'd like to say
both.
it.
It's both.
Is there any chance, you suppose, that you could teach me how to do that in 24 hours or less?
Listen, Victoria, we have a deal for you. We do a fiddle camp once a year.
Wow.
In Grove, America, right up on Grand Lake, northeastern Oklahoma. We would love to have you come up there. We have about 100 participants.
Really?
And
now, see, we didn't plan this.
No, but to have you learn to play the fiddle,
No,
and I've got an instant fiddle lesson too.
Really?
But we might, our cameraman wouldn't like us
Well.
for changing things around. But anyway, we do 3 festivals up in Grove. One in June and July 4th, and then Labor Day is when the fiddle camp is.
Really?
My one time in the year that I actually teach. And have 20 assistant coaches, and so we have all ages, adult beginners, and
wow.
You do great. You could play Amazing Grace in 2 days.
Well, I got some congas, a few weeks ago, or really a few months ago, and I'm working on those. And
that's good.
Now, my husband has a guitar, of course, lots of guitars, but I haven't mastered that yet either. But, I'd love to one of these days kind of pick up different instruments along the way, It'd be fun.
The fiddle camp is great because you can try it out.
Yeah.
And just for a weekend, we can even loan you a violin. And see, here it's a violin or a fiddle. Itzhak Perlman he says, get my fiddle.
Well, we were talking about, you've got such a long list of accomplishments and people that you've entertained with. And, it's funny how God's just got a plan for everybody. Right. And, you've been with so many different individuals that we all know, like you were mentioning some of the people that were in my book. So,
right, and right here on your shelves.
Right.
I mean, I've played with the Oaks and Vince Gill and Jody Miller, Patty Page,
wow.
Les Gillum,
wow.
and Reba and Susie and Paik.
Wow.
Magador. So, it's fun to get to know all these wonderful people and wonderful talents. But I do think there was a time in my life that I was newly divorced, and a mom, and a breadwinner, and a musician, and I really had to do some serious listening for guidance. And I thought that's exactly what you just said, what registered with me. God has a plan, and all I need to do is get into harmony with that plan, get in tune with God's harmony. And that once I sort of released that worry about it, I realized that I had been teaching a few years in the school strings, and I thought, well, I'd love to be a musician. And that's what I feel my calling is. So that's a God-inspired thing for me.
Well, don't you think a lot of times we think too much about what it is?
You have to get yourself out of the way.
Right. If you would just settle down, God's so, He knows who we are.
Right.
He knows what we're made of. Right. He knows what our talents and gifts are. So if we would just...
how He can best use us.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
That's why we're saying being God's instrument is not an egotistical thing at all. It is letting that expression come through you and trying to listen for guidance every moment of every day. What can I do now to glorify you?